Right. Success. It's
No.
something we all want, right?
Absolutely.
But how do we get there? That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, the $1 million
And
plus.
that's what this whole deep dive is all about.
Diving deep. I like it.
We're going to be looking at goal setting for success. Specifically, we're going to be looking at some of the stuff that you sent over, like on SMART goals,
Right.
and breaking down those really big, daunting goals
Yeah.
into smaller steps. And then, and this is maybe the hardest part, how to actually stick with it. Stick with the plan.
That's usually where people fall off, They have the best intentions.
Exactly. So hopefully by the end of this, we can turn those like someday dreams into like, I did it realities.
Love that. I think a good place to start is to acknowledge that a lot of the traditional advice out there about goal setting, it's kind of missing something.
Missing something, huh? What do you mean?
Well, they focus so much on the goal itself,
Okay, yeah.
but they don't really talk about the system you need to build around that goal to actually achieve it.
The system, okay. So like, what would that look like?
Think about training for a marathon.
Okay.
You wouldn't just wake up one day and decide to run 26 miles.
No, definitely not.
You'd start small, build up your endurance over time.
Right, gradually.
Right. It's the same with any goal. And one of the books, Atomic Habits, talks about this idea that, if you're only focused on the end goal, you're actually setting yourself up to put off happiness. You're kind of saying, I'll only be happy when I reach that goal.
Yeah, it's like an either situation, right?
Yes.
Either I achieve the goal and I'm happy,
Right.
or I don't, and then I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've totally fallen into that trap before. I get so focused on the outcome that I forget to, enjoy the journey,
Yeah.
the process.
That's so important. And so Atomic Habits is really pushing for this idea of shifting your focus from the destination to the system to the process.
Okay, I like that. So how do we do that? How do we build that system?
Well, a great place to start is with SMART goals.
SMART goals. I feel like I've heard that acronym a million times.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But to be honest, I kind of roll my eyes at it sometimes. It seems so simple, like duh,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing there's more to it.
Yeah, there's definitely more to it than meets the eye.
Okay, break it down for me.
All right. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay, specific, measurable,
Yeah.
achievable,
Yeah.
relevant, time-bound.
And each of those elements is really important for creating goals that you can actually wrap your head around and work towards.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But give me an example. How does this actually work in practice?
Let's take measurable, for example.
Okay, measurable.
It's not just about tracking your progress. It's about understanding how our brains work.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about that.
Hardwiring Happiness talks about how our brains are wired to crave these little hits of satisfaction that come from seeing ourselves move forward.
Interesting. So we get a little dopamine rush every time we check something off our list.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we can kind of trick our brains into staying motivated.
In a way, yeah. And those little wins actually reinforce the neural pathways associated with the desired behavior. It's like you're building a mental muscle.
Okay, so it's not just about willpower. It's about working with our brains, not against them.
Exactly.
And how does all of this fit into the SMART framework? You mentioned measurable goals, but what about the other parts of the acronym?
Well, let's look at Ruth, for example, from Master Your Mindset.
Okay, Ruth. What's her story?
She had this dream of starting her own business, but she felt stuck. She didn't know where to start.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But by using the SMART framework, she was able to take that big, vague ambition and break it down into a series of actionable steps.
I like that. So each step was measurable and contributed to that bigger vision.
Right. And by making those steps specific, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, she was able to create a roadmap for success.
That's really cool. It shows how this seemingly simple framework can be a real game changer, even for someone who's already ambitious and driven. But I have a question. What about when even a SMART goal just feels too big?
Too big, huh?
Yeah, overwhelming. Where do you even start?
That's where the power of small steps comes in.
Small steps, okay.
Yeah, and Atomic Habits is a great resource for this. It talks about this concept called habit stacking.
Habit stacking, that sounds interesting.
It's basically about attaching a new habit to an existing one.
So if I want to start meditating every morning, I could link it to something I already do, like brushing my teeth.
Exactly. You're making it easier to stick with the new habit because it's already built into your routine.
Oh, I see. And this ties into something that David Goggins talks about in Can't Hurt Me. he took on these incredible challenges, right? Running 100 miles, doing thousands of pull-ups. It's like superhuman stuff. But he achieved them by breaking them down into manageable chunks.
Exactly. And it's not just about physical challenges, it works for any goal.
So it's not about some superhuman ability. It's about the strategy, the system you create.
Right. And it's about consistency. Atomic Habits emphasizes that habit formation isn't about a magic number of days. It's about the frequency, the repetition. Small actions repeated over time, that's where the real transformation happens.
Okay, this is all making a lot of sense. But even with smart goals and like a plan of action, I still struggle with follow-through sometimes. Motivation fades, life gets in the way. How do we bridge that gap between intention and action?
That's a great question. And that's where deadlines and accountability systems come in. It's about creating these external structures that support our internal desires.
Okay, so this is where like the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
All right, tell me more about these accountability systems. What do they actually look like in practice?
Well, think about it. We're way more likely to meet a deadline if we know someone is expecting us to deliver, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if I tell my friend I'm going to finish this project by Friday, I'm way more likely to actually do it than if I just tell myself.
Exactly. It's like having a workout buddy or joining a study group. That sense of shared commitment can make all the difference.
So it's about leveraging that external pressure to like reinforce our internal motivation.
Precisely. And there's a great example of this in Master Your Mindset.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's the story of Michael Pellersick and Anne.
And okay.
She was feeling super overwhelmed, like just totally out of control of her life.
I've been there.
Right. So Michael helped her regain control by scheduling Anne time into her busy agenda.
And time, interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't about finding more time. It was about making her well-being a non-negotiable priority.
I love that. It's like creating a system that protects our goals, even when things get crazy.
Exactly.
And speaking of systems, Atomic Habits talks about implementation intentions. How does that fit into this accountability piece?
Oh, implementation intentions are great. It takes it a step further. It's not just about setting a deadline. It's about planning exactly when and where you'll take action.
So instead of saying, like, I'll work on my website this week, I would say something like, I'll work on my website for an hour on Tuesday at 7 p.m. at my desk.
Exactly. It removes the decision fatigue, so you're less likely to procrastinate. You've already made the decision, so all you have to do is show up.
Well, that's smart. It's like pre-committing to your future self.
Right. And this actually brings us to another crucial element of success. The mindset.
The mindset. Okay. I'm intrigued.
Because our beliefs about ourselves can either help us or hinder us when it comes to achieving our goals.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and Carol Dweck really dives into this in Mindset.
Mindset. Okay.
She talks about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Okay, remind me. What's the difference?
So a fixed mindset is the belief that our abilities are innate, like we're either born with them or we're not. A growth mindset is the belief that we can develop our abilities through effort and learning.
Got it. So it's about whether you believe you can change and grow or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it turns out our mindset plays a huge role in how we approach challenges and setbacks.
So someone with a fixed mindset might give up easily when they hit a roadblock, thinking, I'm just not good at this.
Right.
While someone with a growth mindset might see it as an opportunity to learn and get better.
Exactly. And research actually shows that people with growth mindsets are more resilient, they embrace challenges, and ultimately they're more successful in achieving their goals.
I can see how that would make sense.
Yeah.
You're not so afraid of failing, so you're more willing to take risks.
Exactly. And when you do experience setbacks, you don't see them as like a personal reflection of your worth. You see them as opportunities for growth.
This is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
It highlights how our inner beliefs can become self-fulfilling prophecies, right?
Totally. If you believe you can grow, you're way more likely to put in the effort and see those results.
Okay, so how do we cultivate that growth mindset?
Well, it's a skill that can be developed. And Rick Hansen offers some great techniques in hardwiring happiness.
Like what?
Well, one thing he talks about is focusing on positive experiences and savoring those small wins. It's about training our brains to be more receptive to growth and possibility.
So instead of dwelling on the negative, we're intentionally focusing on the positive, and that helps to shift our mindset.
Exactly. And remember Jack Welch, who we talked about earlier?
Jack Welch, yeah, he was the CEO of GE, right?
Yeah, and in Master Your Mindset, they talk about how his growth mindset impacted the whole company.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, he really believed in people's ability to learn and grow.
Okay.
So he fostered this culture of innovation and continuous improvement at GE, which ultimately led to massive success.
It's amazing to see how a mindset can be transformative, not just for individuals, but for like entire organizations.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's not just about achieving external success, it's about creating a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I have a question. What about those times when, even with a growth mindset, we still have those nagging doubts? How do we deal with that inner critic?
Ah, the inner critic. We all have one. And that's where we need to develop strategies for managing those thoughts and emotions.
Managing our thoughts and emotions. Okay.
It's about taming those inner beasts, as Russ Harris puts it in The Happiness Trap.
Taming inner beasts, I like that. So how do we actually do that? How do we quiet those voices of self-doubt?
One key principle is to acknowledge and accept those difficult thoughts and feelings.
Wait, really? I would think we'd want to, like, push those negative thoughts away.
It seems counterintuitive, but research has shown that trying to suppress our emotions often backfires.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like the more we try to ignore something, the louder it gets.
Exactly. The happiness trap explains that when we resist those thoughts and feelings, we actually give them more power. It's like struggling against a current. You just get swept away.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I've definitely had the experience of, like, the more I try not to think about something, the more I end up thinking about it.
Exactly. So instead of trying to get rid of those thoughts, we can learn to just observe them without judgment, acknowledging that they're there, but not letting them control us.
So it's not about pretending they don't exist. It's about changing our relationship with them.
Exactly. And one technique that the happiness trap talks about is called diffusion.
Diffusion. Okay. I've never heard of that. What is it?
It's about creating some distance between yourself and your thoughts.
Distance. Okay.
So you might imagine your thoughts as leaves floating down a stream or words on a screen.
Interesting. So it's about seeing them as just thoughts, not as facts or truths that we have to believe.
Exactly. And another technique that can be helpful is called labeling.
Labeling. Okay.
Instead of getting caught up in the content of your thought, you simply label it as thought or feeling.
So if I'm feeling anxious about a presentation, I might say to myself, I'm noticing a thought that this presentation is going to be a disaster. And I'm also noticing a feeling of anxiety in my chest.
Perfect. By labeling those thoughts and feelings, you create this sense of separation. It's like you're taking away some of their power.
This is like saying, hey, I see you there, anxiety, but I'm not going to let you run the show.
Exactly.
I love that. It's so empowering. It reminds us that we have a choice in how we respond to those thoughts and feelings.
And remember, these techniques take practice. It's like learning any new skill. It might feel a little awkward at first, but with repetition, it becomes more natural.
This gives us hope that we can learn to manage those inner obstacles and create space for more of the positive emotions and actions that lead to success, right?
Exactly. And speaking of positive emotions, there's actually a fascinating connection between happiness and success that we haven't even touched on yet.
Okay, you had me at happiness. I'm all ears.
All right. So, in The How of Happiness, Sonja Lyubomirsky highlights research that shows happier people actually tend to be more successful in many areas of their lives.
Really? So it's not just that success makes us happy, it's that happiness can actually contribute to our success.
Exactly. And while our genetics and life circumstances play a role in our happiness, a big chunk of it, about 40%, is actually within our control.
Wow, 40%, that's a lot. So even if we're not feeling particularly happy at the moment, there are things we can do to, like, boost our happiness and increase our chances of success.
Absolutely. And one of the most powerful happiness-boosting strategies is practicing gratitude.
Gratitude. Okay, I've heard a lot about gratitude lately.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's trendy. But tell me, like, how does it actually work? Why is it so effective?
Well, when we focus on the things we're grateful for, it shifts our attention away from those negative thoughts.
Okay, so it's about focusing on what we have, not what we lack.
Exactly. And research shows that people who practice gratitude experience all sorts of benefits, like increased happiness, better relationships, improved sleep, even a stronger immune system.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's like this simple yet powerful practice that can have a ripple effect across all areas of our lives.
It really can. And the How of Happiness suggests lots of different ways to practice gratitude, like keeping a gratitude journal, writing a gratitude letter to someone who's impacted your life, or just taking a few moments each day to reflect on what you're thankful for.
It sounds like there are so many ways to weave gratitude into our daily lives. It doesn't have to be some big, complicated thing. Even small moments of appreciation can make a difference.
Absolutely. And when we cultivate that habit of gratitude, it becomes a powerful antidote to those negative thoughts and feelings that can sometimes hold us back.
This has been so eye-opening. It's clear that our emotional well-being plays a huge role in our ability to achieve our goals and just live a more fulfilling life in general.
I totally agree. It's all connected. It really is. And it all comes back to something we talked about earlier, the whole idea of building a system.
Right, the system.
Yeah.
So how does that tie into this whole happiness thing?
Well, think about it. When we set ourselves up for success,
Hmm.
when we create habits and routines that support our goals, when we cultivate a positive mindset, all of that contributes to our overall well-being.
Okay, I see what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
like we're not just chasing success for the sake of success. We're creating a life that we actually enjoy living.
Exactly. And when we're happier, we're more resilient, more creative, more productive. It's like all those things feed into each other.
That makes sense. It's like this positive feedback loop. But I have a question. What about those times when, even when we're doing all the right things, life still throws us a curveball?
Oh, yeah, that happens.
How do we deal with setbacks and challenges, especially when they seem to come out of nowhere?
That's where resilience comes in.
Resilience. Okay, tell me more about that.
It's the ability to bounce back from adversity, to keep going even when things get tough.
I think we could all use a little more resilience these days,
Right. And the good news is, resilience is a skill that can be developed.
like a muscle.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to build resilience is to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth.
So instead of seeing a setback as a failure, we see it as a chance to learn and get stronger.
Precisely. And this ties back to that growth mindset we talked about earlier. When we believe that we can learn and grow from our experiences, those challenges become less daunting.
It's like instead of getting knocked down and staying down, we get back up, dust ourselves off, and say, okay, what can I learn from this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes those setbacks actually lead us to even greater success than we could have imagined.
That's so encouraging. It's a reminder that we don't have to have all the answers right away, and that the journey is just as important as the destination.
It really is. And it's important to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Oh yeah, those little victories could be huge for our motivation.
Absolutely. And it's also about learning to be okay with imperfection.
Imperfection.
Yeah, because nobody is perfect. And if we're constantly striving for perfection, we're setting ourselves up for disappointment.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like we need to give ourselves permission to make mistakes, to be human.
Exactly. And that's something Brene Brown talks about in The Gifts of Imperfection. It's about embracing our vulnerability, letting go of the need to be perfect, and showing up as our authentic selves.
I love that. So how does this all tie back to goal setting?
Well, when we're setting goals, it's important to remember that it's not about being perfect. It's about progress, not perfection.
Okay, progress, not perfection. I like that.
And it's also about being willing to adjust our goals along the way. Like life happens, things change.
Yeah, sometimes those initial goals we set for ourselves no longer feel relevant or exciting.
Right. And that's okay. It's important to be flexible and to be open to new possibilities.
It's not about being rigid. It's about being adaptable, right?
Exactly. And that ties into something we see in Think by Design, where Stacey Baran talks about using those colorful whiteboards.
Oh, whiteboards. I love those.
Right. Like you map out your thoughts, you brainstorm ideas, and you make those abstract concepts more tangible.
I'm a very visual person, so I find that super helpful. Sometimes I can get so lost in my head, and then the whiteboard helps to bring those ideas to life.
Exactly. And it's about being willing to experiment, to try things out and see what works.
So it's not about getting stuck in analysis paralysis. It's about taking action.
Right. Like you don't have to have all the answers right away. You just have to start.
To start. Okay. And what about when those experiments don't work out?
Well, that's where we have to embrace those failures as learning opportunities.
Easier said than done sometimes, right?
True. But every experience, whether we label it a success or a failure, teaches us something. And that learning helps us to grow and to get closer to our goals.
It all comes back to that growth mindset, doesn't it?
It does. It's about seeing every experience as an opportunity for learning and growth, no matter what the outcome.
And that's a powerful perspective to have. It takes the pressure off needing to be perfect, and it allows us to be more open to new possibilities.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought from Start With Why.
Okay, I'm listening.
Simon Sinek says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
That's interesting.
So as you continue to set and pursue your goals, remember to connect with your deeper why, your purpose. That's where we find the real fuel for lasting success.
This has been such an incredible conversation. We've covered so much ground, from the practical steps of setting smart goals and breaking them down to the importance of mindset, resilience, and taking action.
And remember, this is just the beginning. The real journey starts now as you take these insights and apply them to your own life and goals.
So to everyone listening, go out there, embrace those challenges, experiment, learn, grow, and never give up on those dreams.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
It's true. And, thinking about what you were saying about those curveballs life throws at us,
Yeah.
I think it brings us to something super important. How do we deal with setbacks?
Right. Because they happen. They're gonna happen.
Oh, they're inevitable. The road to success is rarely a straight line.
Definitely not. More like a winding path with a few potholes along the way.
Exactly. So how do we navigate those detours? How do we bounce back when things don't go according to plan?
That's the million-dollar question. I feel like I'm constantly hitting roadblocks.
Well, and that's something important to remember. Those setbacks, they're not failures.
They're not.
Not necessarily. They're opportunities.
Opportunities to do what?
To learn, to grow, to become more resilient.
Okay, resilience. I've heard that word a lot, but what does it actually mean?
Resilience is that ability to bounce back from adversity.
So like not giving up when things get tough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about having that grit, that determination to keep going, even when you want to throw in the towel. I definitely need more of that. Sometimes I feel like I give up too easily.
Well, and that's something else important to remember. Resilience, it's a skill.
A skill. So I can actually learn to be more resilient.
Absolutely. It's like a muscle you can strengthen with practice.
Okay, that's encouraging. So how do we practice resilience? How do we build that muscle?
Well, one of the best ways is to actually embrace challenges.
Embrace challenges. Wait, really?
Yeah. See them as opportunities to learn and grow. Instead of getting knocked down and staying down, you get back up, you dust yourself off, and you say, okay, what can I learn from this?
So it's about shifting our perspective, right?
Yeah.
Seeing setbacks as feedback instead of failures.
Exactly. And that's a hallmark of a growth mindset, which we were talking about earlier.
Right, growth mindset. So believing that we can learn and grow from our experiences, even the tough ones.
Exactly. And, another key strategy for turning goals into reality. It's simple, but so many people forget it. Take action.
Take action. Okay. But what if I'm not sure what action to take?
Just start somewhere. Don't get bogged down in analysis paralysis.
I know what you mean. Sometimes I overthink things so much that I never actually get started.
I get it. But it's about taking that first step, even if it's a small one. And remember what Stacey Nair Baran says in Think by Design. Use those colorful whiteboards.
Whiteboards, I love those.
Right. They're great for, mapping out your thoughts, brainstorming ideas.
Visualizing it all, yeah.
Exactly. It helps to bring those abstract concepts to life.
And sometimes just getting it out of my head and onto the whiteboard can help me to see things more clearly.
Exactly. And then once you have some ideas down, it's time to experiment.
Experiment, okay.
Test things out, see what works, what doesn't. Not every experiment is going to be a success.
Right. And that's okay, right?
It is. It's all part of the process.
It's about learning as we go.
Exactly. And even those failures, they provide valuable information.
So it's like we're constantly gathering data that helps us to refine our approach and get closer to our goals.
Right. And that brings us back full circle to that growth mindset we talked about. Seeing every experience as a learning opportunity, whether we label it a success or a failure.
It's amazing how interconnected it all is, right?
It really is. Our goals, our habits, our mindsets, our ability to bounce back from setbacks.
Yeah.
It all plays a role in our journey to success.
And to wrap up, I want to thank you for sharing all of these incredible insights. We've covered so much ground today, and I know our listeners are going to walk away with a ton of valuable takeaways.
And to everyone listening, remember what Simon Sinek says and start with why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So as you continue to set those goals, remember to connect with that deeper purpose. That's what fuels true, lasting success.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you. And to everyone listening, keep learning, keep growing, and keep chasing those dreams. Until next time.